Let me tell you about the worst decision Maya Reyes ever made. It wasn't quitting her job. It wasn't moving to a new town where she knew absolutely nobody. It wasn't even agreeing to deliver her landlord's forgotten package to an address she'd never heard of at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. It was the shortcut. It's always the shortcut. The Ashvale forest sat at the edge of Crestwood like a wall someone had forgotten to put a door in. Dense, dark, very ancient, the kind of forest that feels like it has opinions about who enters it. Every local knew you didn't cut through Ashvale after dark. They didn't always explain why. They didn't need to. The look on their faces when you asked was explanation enough. Maya had been in Crestwood for exactly 11 days. She didn't know the look yet, so she stepped off the road, told herself it was just trees, and walked into the forest. For the first 5 minutes, it was fine. Just trees. Just darkness and the sound of her own footsteps on dead leaves and the distant hoot of something she told herself was definitely an owl. Then she heard the growl. It came from everywhere at once, low, resonant, the kind of sound that doesn't just reach your ears but moves through your chest and speaks directly to some ancient part of your brain that has one single message. Run. Maya didn't run. She froze, which is either very brave or very stupid depending on how you look at it. And then she saw them. 4 wolves, enormous, bigger than any wolf she had ever seen in any nature documentary, bigger than any wolf had any right to be, moving out of the shadows with the slow, deliberate patience of things that have never needed to hurry. Surrounding her in a loose circle, close enough that she could see the intelligence in their eyes. That was the part that truly terrified her. Not their size, not their teeth. The intelligence. The way they looked at her like they were deciding something. And then the 5th wolf stepped out of the darkness. And everything stopped. He was massive, larger than the others, black as the space between stars with eyes the color of winter ice. He moved like gravity worked differently for him, like the forest itself stepped back to let him pass. He stopped 6 feet from Maya and looked at her. She looked back. Her heart was hammering so hard she was certain he could hear it. The other wolves waited. She got the impression they were waiting for a signal, for the command that would end this very quickly and very badly. It didn't come. The black wolf stared at her for what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds. Then he did something she did not expect. He stepped aside, just moved out of her path, turned those ice-colored eyes away from her, a dismissal, or something that looked like one. The other wolves parted. Maya walked through the gap they made, slowly, carefully, not running even though every cell in her body was screaming at her to run, and came out the other side of the forest 3 minutes later, package still in hand, knees shaking so badly she had to sit down on the curb for a full 10 minutes before she could walk again. She told herself she'd imagined it, the size of them, the intelligence, the way the black one had looked at her like he already knew her name. His name was Cale Ashvale. Yes, the forest was named for his family. That should tell you everything you need to know about the kind of power the Ashvale pack carried in this region. He was 29 years old and had been alpha since he was 24. Not because his father died, but because every wolf in the pack had looked at him at 24 and understood instinctively, in the wordless way wolves understand things, that this was the one. This was the alpha. He was not cruel. That matters. Remember that later. He was not the kind of leader who ruled through fear, who enjoyed the power, who forgot that every wolf under his protection was a person with a life and a family and things worth protecting. He was, however, completely closed off, had been for 3 years. Since the night his chosen mate, Sarah, had been killed in a territorial attack from a rival pack. Since the night he had held her while the light went out of her eyes and understood, with a totality that rewrote everything inside him, means that some losses don't heal. They just become part of the architecture of who you are. His pack worried about him quietly. His beta, Rowan, who had been his best friend since childhood, had tried exactly once to suggest that Cale needed to let someone in again. Cale had looked at him with those winter eyes, and Rowan had decided the conversation was over. So, this was the man who let Maya Reyes walk out of his forest. He spent the rest of that night telling himself it was mercy. That she was human, clearly lost, clearly terrified, and executing a frightened human girl for taking a wrong turn was not something he was willing to do. He spent the next 3 days not thinking about the way she had looked at him, straight at him, not through him, not past him, at him, like she was seeing a person and not a predator. Nobody had looked at him like that in a very long time. She came back on a Tuesday, not into the forest. She wasn't that reckless. She came to the edge of it. The place where the tree line met the old stone wall that marked the boundary of Ashvale territory, where the ground changed texture from ordinary town dirt to something older, darker, richer. She sat on the wall, took out a sketchbook, and started drawing the trees. Kyle knew she was there within 30 seconds. He could sense any human within a quarter mile of the border. It was instinct, automatic, as natural as breathing. He told himself he wasn't going to go look. He was at the tree line in 4 minutes. He watched her from the shadows, which he was aware was a deeply unreasonable thing to be doing, and tried to understand what exactly was happening to him. She was drawing, just sitting on a cold stone wall in November, sketchbook balanced on her knees, pencil moving quickly, completely absorbed in what she was doing. She was humming something under her breath, slightly off-key. It was the most disarming thing he had ever witnessed. She came back the next day, and the day after that, always to the same spot on the wall, always with the sketchbook, sometimes with coffee in a thermos that she clutched with both hands like it was the most important object in the world. And every day, without entirely meaning to, Kyle found himself at the tree line, watching. On the 6th day, he stepped out of the shadows. Maya looked up from her sketchbook, went completely still. He was in human form, dark hair, tall, wearing a gray jacket that did very little to make him look less like someone you should be cautious around. He stopped at the tree line and looked at her across the 12 feet of open ground between them. "You keep coming back," he said. His voice was low, direct. Maya tilted her head. "It's a public wall. The forest behind it isn't." "I'm not in the forest," she said. "I'm on the wall." She held up her sketchbook. "The trees are beautiful. I'm drawing them." Kyle stared at her. She stared back, the same way she had in the forest, direct, unafraid, like she was looking at a person. "What's your name?" he said. Not a question. A man unused to asking for things, even information. "Maya," she said. "Yours?" Something moved across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she asked, that she didn't already know, that she was looking at the most powerful werewolf in the Northern Territory like he was just a man she had met at a wall. "Kyle," he said. Maya nodded. The forest is yours, isn't it?" It wasn't a question either. He should have told her to leave, should have made clear that the border was not a place for humans, that her presence was a complication he didn't need, that whatever this was needed to stop before it became something. Instead, he heard himself say, "What are you drawing?" And Cale Ashvale, who had not sat with another person without purpose or agenda in 3 years, sat down on the cold stone wall next to a human girl with a sketchbook and looked at her drawings of his forest until the sun went down. It became a thing. Not a defined thing, not something either of them named or acknowledged or examined too closely. Just Maya at the wall most afternoons, and Kyle appearing from the trees, and 2 people talking in the way people talk when they are both pretending they aren't waiting for the conversation to happen. She told him about her life, the job she'd left behind in the city, the illustration work she was trying to build, the reason she had chosen Crestwood specifically, which was nothing more romantic than that it was cheap and quiet and had good light in the mornings. He told her almost nothing, but he listened, with the complete, focused attention of someone who had forgotten what it was like to be genuinely interested in another person, and Maya found that being listened to like that was more intoxicating than she was comfortable admitting. She didn't know what he was. Not for certain. She had suspicions, The forest, the wolves, the way he moved, the way other people in town went careful and quiet when his name came up. But she didn't ask, and he didn't tell her. They were both, in their own way, just circling something they weren't ready to name. Then came Daniel Walsh. Daniel was new in Crestwood too, a photographer, charming, tall, the kind of easy confidence that fills a room without trying. He met Maya at the coffee shop on a Wednesday morning, noticed her sketchbook, asked about her work. By Friday, he had asked her to dinner. She said yes. Because he was kind and funny, and she was lonely, and there was nothing official between her and a wolf who technically hadn't even admitted what he was. Cale found out the way he found out everything that happened in Crestwood, through the pack. One of his wolves mentioned it casually, not understanding the significance. Just town gossip, the new human girl and the photographer going to Rosario's on Friday night. Kyle went very still in a way that made every wolf in the room suddenly find somewhere else to be. He didn't go to Rosario's. He was not a man who did things like go to restaurants to watch the woman he wasn't admitting he had feelings for have dinner with someone else. But he ran the forest that night, for 4 hours, in wolf form, which was the Cale Ashvale equivalent of screaming into a pillow. When Maya came to the wall on Saturday morning, he was already there. Not in the trees. On the wall. Waiting. She stopped when she saw him. Something in his expression, carefully controlled, very still, eyes just slightly too intense, made her set her coffee down slowly. "How was dinner?" he said. The question landed like a stone in still water. "Fine," Maya said carefully. "How do you know about dinner?" "I know everything that happens in this town." "That's not unsettling at all." She tilted her head. "Are you—" She seemed to be choosing her words very carefully. "Are you bothered by that?" Kyle looked at her. The forest was completely silent behind him. No birds, no wind, like even the trees were waiting for his answer. "Yes," he said. Just that. No explanation, no softening, no walking it back. Just, yes. Maya sat down on the wall next to him, their shoulders almost touching. "Then maybe," she said quietly, "you should do something about that." Daniel Walsh was not just a photographer. Mank Il had known that within 48 hours of the man arriving in Crestwood. The pack had tracked his movements, checked his background, done what packs do when a stranger enters their territory and shows interest in someone under their protection. What they found was complicated. Daniel Walsh worked for a man named Victor Crane. Victor Crane ran an organization that had been hunting supernatural communities for 11 years, not with silver bullets and wooden stakes like the stories suggested, but with documentation, evidence, exposure. The kind of calculated modern threat that was far more dangerous than anything that could be stopped with teeth and claws. He had sent Daniel to Crestwood specifically because someone had given him a tip about Ashvale territory, about what lived there, and Daniel, charming, easy, asking all the right questions over dinner, had been trying to get information from Maya, testing how much she knew, how close she was to the forest, how close she was to Cale. Cale dismantled it so quietly that Maya never knew it happened. He had Daniel's cover identity unraveled within a week. Had Victor Crane's organization sent a message, not a threatening one, not yet, but a clear one, that Crestwood was known and watched, and that any further movement against the pack would be met with consequences that the organization was not equipped to handle. And Daniel left Crestwood on a Thursday, told Maya he'd been called away for a work assignment. She was mildly disappointed for about a day and a half. Kyle never told her any of it. His beta Rowan asked him why. Kyle was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Because she doesn't need to be afraid. She's safe." "That's enough." Rowan looked at his alpha, at the man who had been closed off and unreachable for 3 years, and felt something loosen in his chest, something that felt a lot like hope. She found out what he was on a rainy Thursday in December, not because he told her, though he had been building toward it, slowly, in the careful way he did everything. She found out because she came to the wall earlier than usual, and the wolf was there before the man was. Black, enormous. standing at the tree line in the rain, and this time she was close enough, and the light was right enough that there was no way to pretend she wasn't seeing exactly what she was seeing. She didn't run. She sat down on the wet wall in the rain and waited. When Kyle emerged from the trees 10 minutes later, human, jacket in hand, expression carefully unreadable, she was still there. Sketchbook open, drawing him. He sat beside her and said nothing for a long time. The rain came down steadily. Neither of them moved to shelter. "How long?" she asked finally. "Not are you dangerous, or what are you, or I should leave, just how long?" "My whole life," he said. "Born this way." She nodded slowly, turned the sketchbook toward him. She had drawn the wolf, accurately, beautifully, the intelligence in the eyes captured perfectly. "I knew," she said quietly. "I think I knew from the first night. And you kept coming back. And I kept coming back." She looked at him directly. "You let me walk out of that forest when you didn't have to. That tells me more about you than what you are does." Something in Cale's face, something behind the walls and the careful control and the 3 years of grief he wore like armor, shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. "I lost someone," he said. The words came out rough, like they hadn't been used in a long time. 3 years ago, I've been—" He stopped, started again. "I stopped letting people in." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she closed her sketchbook, turned to face him fully, and did something nobody had done to Cale Ashvale in 3 years. She put her hand over his. Just that. Warm, certain, no hesitation, not fixing it, not pretending it wasn't real, just, "Here. I'm here." Cale looked down at her hand on his, and the alpha of the Ashvale pack, the most powerful werewolf in the Northern Territory, the man his pack would follow into any darkness, turned his hand over and held on. The pack found out about Maya the way packs find out about everything, all at once and with strong opinions. Most of them were cautiously hopeful. Rowan was openly, embarrassingly relieved. A handful of the older wolves were skeptical. A human, they said. A human with no knowledge of their world, no ability to protect herself, no understanding of what it meant to be connected to an alpha. And one wolf, Sable, who had wanted Cale's attention for 2 years and had never received it, was something considerably colder than skeptical. The pack gathered on the full moon. All of them, as they always did, in the great clearing at the heart of Ashvale Forest, the place that had been the center of pack life for 6 generations. It was tradition, ceremony, the heartbeat of who they were. Maya had not been invited. She didn't know it was happening. Sable made sure she found out. She sent one of the younger wolves to Maya's apartment with a message, carefully worded, designed to wound, that Cale was at the clearing with his pack, that there was another woman there always had been, that whatever Maya thought was happening between her and the alpha was something he indulged with human women from time to time, that she should come see for herself if she didn't believe it. Maya came. She stood at the edge of the clearing, and the scene was nothing like what she'd been told. No other woman, just the pack, assembled in the moonlight and Kyle at the center of it all, and the moment his eyes found hers across the clearing, everything stopped. Every wolf in that clearing felt it, the shift in their alpha, the way his entire attention collapsed to a single point, the way he moved toward her without deciding to. He crossed the clearing in 10 seconds, stopped in front of her, looked at her face, the confusion there, the hurt she was trying to hide, the fact that she had come anyway, and understood immediately what had happened. He turned to face his pack, 300 wolves in the moonlit clearing, watching in absolute silence. "This is Maya Reyes," he said. His voice carried across the entire clearing without effort, the voice of an alpha in full authority. "She is mine, and I am hers." A pause. "If anyone who has a problem with that," his eyes found Sable in the crowd, "can bring it to me directly." Nobody moved. Then Rowan, dear, loyal, quietly emotional Rowan, bowed his head, and like a wave moving through water, every wolf in the clearing followed. Maya stood beside Kale in the moonlight, 300 wolves bowing before her, and felt his hand find hers in the dark. She held on with everything she had. Later, much later, when the pack had dispersed and the forest was quiet and they were sitting on the old stone wall in the moonlight, Maya looked at him. "You said I was yours," she said. "I did. You didn't ask." Kyle turned to look at her, and for once, for the first time since she had known him, there was no careful control in his expression. No walls, no armor, just a man, looking at the person who had sat on a wall in the rain and held his hand and changed everything without even trying. "I'm asking now," he said quietly. "Maya, will you be mine?" She looked at him. This impossible, infuriating, unexpectedly lonely man who had let her walk out of his forest and then couldn't stay away from the wall. "I've been yours," she said, "since the night you stepped aside and let me go." The moon was full above the Ashvale forest. The trees were still. And somewhere deep in the dark, a wolf howled, long and clear and triumphant. And the alpha smiled. If this story lived in your chest the way it lived in mine writing it, subscribe, drop a wolf emoji in the comments right now, and tell me whose side you were on from the very first night. And if you need to know what happens next, you know what to do.